People, hello, how are we? Hopefully we're all doing well. I'm Tom. Let's talk about why I believe the biggest threat to Opetaia isn't actually anybody in the cruiserweight division. I don't think it's Chris Smith or any of the other champions. I actually believe it to be Alexander Usyk. Now, this is being based off of the assumption that Opetaia is the best cruiserweight, which I think should be a pretty unanimously accepted way of thinking. I think this should be a pretty unanimously accepted assumption because, and this isn't no part me underrating or slagging off any of the other cruiserweights. I actually really like a lot of them, especially our own Chris Smith. I really like Chris Smith. I think he's a fantastic champion, a fantastic role model, and a great cruiserweight. But Jai Opetaia simply is better, and I'm not having all this talk about, because he didn't flatline Marius Breedis, that he's now suddenly overrated. He beat Marius Breedis off the back of, well, 2 wins against Marius Breedis, one of which was with a broken jaw, detached jaw, I believe it was, definitely not his best performance. And then the second one, he's admitted, I don't think it was his best performance, but he's admitted it wasn't his best performance. He's come out and said that he was hunting for the knockout and perhaps he should have been sticking behind his boxing fundamentals, his IQ, because of which he has now got a new trainer. A new trainer I think will help him focus on what he needs to focus on. Things like his boxing IQ, his boxing fundamentals, not always hunting for a KO. Assuming, though, that Jai Opetaia is the best cruiserweight on the planet, which I believe him to be, and many others believe him to be, I actually think the Jai Opetaia situation is similar to that of what we're seeing with Beterbiev and Bivol, where Beterbiev and Bivol are in a pretty competitive division with some top guys, but they are just simply a level above. The gap between Beterbiev and Bivol and anybody else in that division is a pretty substantial gap, quite a significant gap, and that's no disrespect to anyone else in the light heavyweight division. They're just simply that good, and I think that to be the case with Jai Opetaia. I think Marius Breedis could still mix it up with probably the other champions, but certainly a number of world-class heavyweights, and really give them a proper run for their money, potentially even beating them. Marius Breedis could definitely still go ahead and be a champion again and beat some of these champions that are out there. I think, again, the thing is, Jai Opetaia, the gap between him, whilst maybe isn't quite as big as the gap between Beterbiev and Bivol, as in those two and the rest of the division, is quite a substantial gap between Jai Opetaia and then your Billam Smith, your Breedis, any other one, your Ramirez, the other ones. The thing is, there's only one of him, whereas there still is that Beterbiev-Bivol matchup they can make. That's my thoughts. So that's why I don't actually think the biggest threat to Jai Opetaia is in the cruiserweight division. I think it lies outside of the cruiserweight division, in the likes of an Alexander Usyk. The only other names that spring to mind that could be his biggest threat is Beterbiev and Bivol, but I'll explain why I don't think it's them. So just to touch briefly back on the Jai Opetaia versus Marius Breedis matchup. Okay, he didn't stop Breedis, but let's not forget that Breedis gave Usyk probably the hardest, or at least closest fight of his entire career. In fact, a lot of people actually say that Breedis won that fight. Jai goes in and beats him with a detached broken jaw and then rematches him and handily beats him again. Granted, he was older then, but let's not forget that Breedis managed to take Alexander Usyk in the Ali Trophy, the little tournament they do with cruiserweights, to a majority decision. It wasn't, I think one person had a draw, 2 had it to Usyk. So he took him all the way. The closest fight he's had, certainly the closest fight, potentially the hardest fight he's had. He then goes in the second year after Usyk goes up and wipes the floor, just wins it easily, becomes undisputed champion. And then Jai Opetaia goes in there against the Breedis and cleans up. Does the job with a broken jaw and then does it again to defend it whilst not having his best performance by his own admission and hunting for that knockout. So let's put some respect on Breedis' name. And then with that should come some respect on Jai's name. This whole overrated business, and you can start to see cracks. He looked unbeatable. Now you can see some chinks in the armour. There's always chinks in everyone's armour, of course, but let's not start saying that these chinks are somebody that are there that somebody like Ramirez can go and pluck away at, because it's not. The same way Beterbiev, yeah, he's been dropped before. There's some chinks there. No one's going to get to him. Just like Bivol can't knock people out, won't step on the gas. There's some chinks there. No one can get to it though. Obviously, there's faults and weaknesses in Opetaia's game plan and style, but is anyone going to get to it? Probably not. This take that Chris Billam-Smith can cause him any sort of major problem or anything like that, come on. There's a reason Chris Billam-Smith won't fight him. Jai has been openly chasing that fight. And look, whilst I don't think Chris Billam-Smith is scared, he knows it's his most difficult fight, so he needs to collect the other belts first. Boost his pull, and then pursue the fight and boosting his purse. Anyway, Jai is currently the best cruiserweight on the planet, and he beats all the others actually quite handily, and I think this is what Chris Billam-Smith sees. I think Chris Billam-Smith, Jai's offered Chris Billam-Smith some of his own purse, but in the negotiations, the deals, Jai said, look, I'll give you some of my purse, let's get this fight done. Chris Billam-Smith didn't want it yet, and I think it's because he thinks he's not ready. I don't think he's scared or thinks he can't beat him. I think he doesn't want to do it yet. He's just come off the difficult fight against Richard Blackpool. He wants another one to kind of come out of that, get back into it, another, get in the swing of things, and then we'll go into it, and I think we'll see it next. I think he's scared, but there's a reason he hasn't fought him yet. So why is Usyk then his biggest threat? Well, I think to find his biggest threat, what I've summed up in this first sort of 5-minute intro is that you need to look outside of his division to find somebody who can really threaten him and cause him problems. So you're left with up or down. Looking up, you got the heavyweights, or looking down, or light heavyweights. Obviously there is Bridgerweight, but we can quickly write off Bridgerweight because there's nobody in there, certainly nobody in there that's going to cause him any issues. So we'll look down first. We'll look at the light heavyweights. And of course, you've got two names. You've got Beterbiev and you've got Bivol. One of those two is what you're left working with. Looking at Bivol, I don't think Bivol's going to go up to fight Jai Opetaia. Look, it's an option, and it's certainly an opportunity for Bivol and Opetaia. But I don't think he's big enough to go up. He's actually, in fact, spoken about going down before. He's already spoken about it. He said after beating Canelo, if they were to have a rematch, he wants to fight Canelo down at 168. It's only fair. Canelo came up to 175 to fight Bivol for his belts. Bivol beat him, and Bivol was like, well, I've won now. I've done my bit. I've fought you at my weight, beaten you at my weight, kept my belts at my weight. Let me go down to your weight. So there's none of this excuses of a weight disadvantage. I'm coming down to your weight. I'm getting drained, going to your weight. Let me fight for all the marbles at your weight at 168. Now, if he's able to get to 168, that suggests to me he's closer. He's more likely to going down to 168 than he is to going up to 175 to 200. Apologies. That's not to say he can't, but it would suggest to me, someone like Beterbiev isn't getting to 168. So it would suggest to me that that's more likely. So what about Beterbiev? Well, Beterbiev has actually spoken about going up. He's a very, very big light heavyweight, and he has mentioned a few times about going up to cruiserweight, how he'd fill out that way, and he kind of struggles to make his way already. And given his age, I think if he's going to move up, he's going to do it sooner rather than later. But there is a few caveats to that. One of which is, how is this power going to transfer up? I'm not saying it won't transfer up, but he is 39 years old. He's 2 years older than Usyk. It is an uncertainty, especially at his age, as to how this power, how this weight is going to transfer up. How will he fill out? And with that, as I've just sort of said, how's the power going to transfer up? Again, not saying it won't, but it's an uncertainty. How will it transfer up? He'd go from being a very big light heavyweight to just a normal cruiserweight. And I think half the reason he's been stopping people so much, 20 times in fact, perfect KO ratio, is because of how big he is at that weight, partly at least. Granted, obviously that's not the only reason. He's just a phenomenal, absolutely incredible fighter. But I think partly it will be because of how big he is at that weight. He won't be the same top of the division fighter at cruiser as he is now. That's not to say he won't still stop people, but would it be the same at cruiserweight? Now, let's look at Usyk. Well, he's already said that he wants to go back down to cruiserweight after the Fury rematch. And if he was serious about that, then Opetaia versus Usyk could be a genuinely big fight that we'll see for undisputed. Unlike Beterbiev, he's proven at cruiserweight. He's already fought and cleaned out that division, becoming undisputed there. So we know he obviously has what it takes to be the best and get the job done in that division. Whilst Turki Al-Sheikh has said that the winner of Beterbiev Bivol versus Opetaia is a fight he wants to make, I just think Opetaia, they're incredible fighters, but so's Opetaia. And like I said, they're at the top of their division, he's at the top of his division so much, and I think that should mean Opetaia is able to beat them, although it is a super fight. Usyk's also coming down and not up, so he'll fill out that weight more, potentially giving him even more power at that weight than before. But if you can step in and not only take the power of the likes of AJ, Dubois and Fury, but actually stopping one of them and coming very close to stopping the other two, the guys at cruiserweight don't really have too much hope in being able to stop you. Again, that's not to say Usyk can't be stopped. I'm sure he can. But being able to take those punches of the heavyweights, going back onto cruiserweight, I think it's going to be a bit of a, oh, okay, this isn't awful. In the same sense, going up in weight and filling out at heavyweight, then coming back down to cruiserweight should be a bit more of a, oh, I feel a bit more comfortable at this weight now. I'm a lot more muscular. You fill out the weight properly. The only thing for me would be Usyk's age. I mean, if this fight is to ever happen, which I think will be after a Beterbiev Bivol fight, I think what will happen is Jai's going to have to collect the belts, fight a Beterbiev Bivol winner, then he'd look at fighting an Usyk probably. So by the time this fight happens, Usyk's got to be tickling 40, and that's no spring chicken. Would he still be able to hold that relentless pressure that he's known for against these smaller, more like quick, maneuverable cruiserweights? I'm not saying he can't or wouldn't be able to, but someone like a Opetaia who's going to have that movement, going to be able to keep up better than these big brutes like a Dubois and AJ and a Fury, is Usyk at his age going to be able to hold that the same way he's been able to previously? I think the only other real argument you can make against Usyk would be the want and desire. I mean, if this is to happen, by that point, Usyk will have done it all, unified and become undisputed at cruiserweight, defended it, become undisputed and unified at heavyweight, then kind of defended it against Fury, not like, legitimately because he hasn't got the IBF, but, whatever. And then going back down, you could say that desire would be gone. What's the want? Where's that gone? But actually, Usyk's the ultimate professional, and I don't think that's going to have anything sort of affect to him. I think just the way he is, the ultimate professional that he is, he'd train like he's never won anything. That's how he'd train. He's just that type of guy. Now, do I think this will actually happen? No, not at all. What I hope will happen is he's going to beat Fury for a second time, then he retires and sails off into the sunset and lives a happy, fulfilled life. What I think will happen is he's going to beat Fury for a second time, make a defence against somebody like a Parker or a Caballero, probably a Parker, somebody who's earned it and deserves it before he scatters the belts. And then he'll do that, then he'll retire. That's what I think is going to happen. But that is actually why I think Jai Opetaia's biggest threat is Usyk and not another cruiserweight or even Bivol or Beterbiev. You let me know your thoughts, people, in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like, a comment, subscribe to our YouTube works. Peace.